There are certain nights in life when you feel like all the effort, all the sacrifice, finally means something. For me, that night was always my annual charity gala. I built my career in finance, starting from a small office with one assistant and a rented desk to running one of the most respected investment firms in the city. But money was never the end goal, it was a tool, a means to build something meaningful. That's why 10 years ago, I started this gala. It wasn't just another networking event or a way to put my name in the society pages. It was about giving back. Every year, the proceeds funded programs for children in underserved neighborhoods, schools, aftercare centers, scholarships. This year marked our 10th anniversary, and I wanted it to be unforgettable. I stood near the ballroom entrance that evening, greeting guests as they arrived. The hotel's grand chandelier spilled light over polished marble floors and tables dressed in gold and white. The sound of a live string quartet floated through the air, mingling with the scent of roses from centerpieces imported just for the occasion. It was perfect. My daughter Olivia arrived just after 7, her husband Adam walking half a step behind her. Olivia had always been striking, the kind of woman who carried herself like every room belonged to her the moment she stepped in. Tonight, in a deep blue gown, she looked every bit the part of someone ready to impress a crowd. "Dad," she said, giving me a quick hug, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "This looks incredible." "Thank you," I said, smiling. "It's a big night for the foundation." Adam shook my hand firmly. "Victor, great setup. You've outdone yourself." I looked at them both, pride stirring in my chest. When Olivia was little, she used to sit on my lap while I worked at my desk, scribbling in my ledger margins and saying, "One day, Daddy, I'm going to be like you." Tonight, she looked like someone who had already arrived. Guests streamed in steadily. Familiar faces from the corporate world, philanthropic circles, even a few local celebrities. Conversations bubbled around me, laughter, compliments, promises of generous donations. Everything felt like it was finally coming together, a testament to years of hard work not just from me, but from the volunteers and partners who believed in this mission. Midway through the evening, I took the stage. The room fell silent, except for the soft ring of a single champagne flute tapping a spoon. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice echoing slightly under the high ceilings. 10 years ago, we started with nothing but a dream, to give back to create opportunities where none existed. Tonight, I'm proud to say we've raised over $10 million across those years, impacting the lives of thousands of children. And tonight, I know we'll do even more. Applause erupted. I paused for a moment, letting it wash over me not as ego, but as gratitude. When I stepped off the stage, Olivia was there, clapping enthusiastically. "That was perfect, Dad," she said. For a while, everything felt right. I mingled with guests, thanking them personally. I talked with a school principal, who shared how last year's funding had allowed them to open a new library. I shook hands with donors who had been with us since the beginning. But then I noticed something small, something I might have ignored on any other night. Olivia and Adam weren't at the silent auction tables or the donation booths. Instead, they were off in the far corner of the room, chatting with one of my wealthiest business acquaintances, Daniel Cross, a man known for aggressive investments and for never showing up to charity events without a strategic reason. I walked past slowly, catching snippets of their conversation. "Really, all it takes is the right backing. And with your experience, Daniel, we know this project could scale nationally." Olivia's voice was polished, professional, almost rehearsed. Adam nodded eagerly. "We already have a solid pitch deck. We just need someone with your reach. Victor speaks so highly of you. We knew we had to connect." Daniel smiled faintly, glancing around. "Interesting. Why don't we schedule a lunch next week to go over details?" Olivia beamed. "Perfect. We'll email you tomorrow." I stopped mid-step. For a moment, I wasn't sure what I'd just heard. My daughter, at my charity gala, using my name and connections to pitch her own business venture? I pushed the thought aside, telling myself I was being too sensitive. People network at these events all the time, and if Olivia was ambitious, that was a good thing, right? But something about it unsettled me. This night was supposed to be about giving, about helping those kids who couldn't even dream of opportunities like Olivia had. And yet here she was, turning it into something else. I went back to greeting donors and overseeing the auction, but the thought gnawed at me. Every time I scanned the room, Olivia and Adam were with someone different, another investor, another CEO, another person who had come here thinking about children's futures, not someone else's private business deal. By the time dessert was served, I had a pit in my stomach. The evening ended with record-breaking numbers. We'd raised more in one night than any gala before. People congratulated me, shook my hand, and said they couldn't wait for next year. I smiled for every photo, thanked every guest, and made sure no one saw the storm brewing in my head. Because deep down, I knew tonight hadn't been what I wanted it to be. It was beautiful, successful, yes, but something ugly had crept in underneath it all, and I wasn't sure I could ignore it. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Dozens of messages, congratulations from donors, thank you notes from volunteers, news outlets tagging me in articles about the record-breaking amount raised. From the outside, it had been a perfect night. But as I scrolled through photo after photo, smiling faces, raised glasses, Olivia's flawless blue gown standing out in almost every shot, I couldn't shake the image of her leaning in close to Daniel Cross, whispering in his ear like a seasoned deal-maker. I made coffee and sat by the window, trying to focus on the positive. We had raised enough to fund 3 new after-school centers. That was what mattered, wasn't it? But every time I tried to hold on to that thought, another image intruded. Olivia and Adam moving through the room like sharks in designer clothes, targeting anyone with money or influence. At noon, I drove to the foundation office for our usual post-gala debrief. My assistant, Karen, was already there, cheerful as always. "Victor, you were a hit last night. We hit every fundraising goal and then some. The silent auction alone doubled expectations." "That's great news, Karen," I said, forcing a smile. She hesitated before adding, "Although, there were a few comments." I looked up. "Comments?" "About your daughter and her husband. People noticed they were networking a lot. Nothing bad. Exactly, just unusual for a charity event." I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, I noticed." Karen lowered her voice. "Victor, I know it's none of my business, but some people thought they were pitching something. Do you know anything about that?" "No," I said quickly, perhaps too quickly, but I'll handle it. That evening, I tried to talk myself out of worrying. Olivia was ambitious, like me. Maybe I should be proud that she was looking for opportunities. Still, something about it didn't sit right, like a hairline crack in a beautiful vase. You can ignore it for a while, but eventually, it will split. The following day, I stopped by Olivia's apartment unannounced. She opened the door, surprised but smiling. "Dad, twice in 1 week? That's a record." "Can I come in?" I asked. Inside, Adam sat at the dining table, laptop open, spreadsheets covering the screen. Olivia poured coffee for all of us, her movements smooth, controlled, like she had practiced this moment. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "I noticed you and Adam were pretty busy at the gala. Networking?" Olivia didn't flinch. "Of course. It was full of high-level people. You always say connections are everything." "True," I said, keeping my voice calm. "But that night wasn't about your business. It was about the kids, about giving back." Adam jumped in. "Victor, with all due respect, networking doesn't take away from that. We donated, we participated, but we also saw an opportunity. Why not leverage it? Everyone does." I stared at him, choosing my words carefully. "Leverage what exactly? My reputation? My contacts? My name?" Olivia frowned. "Dad, don't make it sound ugly. We're just trying to build something for ourselves. We're not asking you for money. We're building relationships." I leaned forward. "Relationships you only have because of me." The room went quiet for a moment. Olivia set her cup down gently. "Isn't that what family is for? To support each other?" Her words stung because once, I would have said the same thing. But there's a difference between support and exploitation, and I wasn't sure they understood it. That week, small things started to click into place. An email forwarded accidentally by my assistant that included Olivia's name in a potential investor list. A voicemail from Daniel Cross thanking me for sending your daughter my way. Even a LinkedIn update showing Adam had suddenly connected with half of my top donors. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even overtly malicious. But it felt wrong. I remembered the early years of the Gala Olivia, helping set up tables as a teenager, laughing as she carried boxes of centerpieces, saying, "Dad, one day I'm going to make you proud." Back then, she cared about the mission, about the kids we were helping. When did it change? When did she start seeing these events not as a platform to give, but as a stage to take? The realization made me sick. A few nights later, I hosted a small follow-up dinner with some of the gala's biggest donors. It was supposed to be informal, just a thank you gathering. To my surprise, Olivia and Adam showed up, uninvited. Olivia smiled like nothing was wrong. Dad, I thought it'd be nice to drop by and thank people personally. She moved through the room with practiced ease, Adam close behind, each of them sliding into conversations with top donors. I watched them from across the room, my jaw tight, as Olivia handed out business cards like candy at Halloween. One donor, a woman named Claire, whom I respected deeply, later pulled me aside. Victor, I adore your daughter, but is she starting a fund or something? She asked me about my firm's portfolio like she was pitching a partnership. That was it the moment the crack widened. I smiled politely, deflected the question, but inside I felt something harden. My gala, my reputation, my legacy was being hijacked for someone else's ambition. When the last guest left and the house was quiet again, I poured myself a drink and sat at the kitchen counter. Helen's photo was on the shelf nearby, her smiling face a reminder of simpler days when our daughter ran lemonade stands and saved pennies to buy gifts for charity drives. I whispered to the empty room. What happened to her, Helen? What happened to us? The silence, as always, had no answers. But I knew one thing for certain. If I didn't confront this soon, I was going to lose more than just my name. I was going to lose my daughter not to tragedy, but to greed. I didn't call Olivia before going to see her again. I didn't want to give her time to prepare speeches or excuses. I needed raw honesty, even if it was painful. When she opened the door and saw me standing there was no warm smile this time. Dad, she said flatly. What now? I stepped inside without asking permission, something I had never done before, and closed the door behind me. Adam was there, standing near the dining table, his expression guarded. I put the pitch deck I had taken last time onto the table, tapping it with my finger. We need to talk about this, about what you did at my gala and what you've done since. Olivia crossed her arms, defensive from the first moment. We've already talked, Dad. You don't want to support us, fine. But don't come here to lecture us. I stared at her, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. This isn't just about support. This is about you lying, about you using my name, about you turning something built for children into your private investment hunt. Adam stepped forward. Victor, calm down. We were networking. Everyone does it. That's how business works. I shook my head. No, Adam. Business doesn't work like that when it's built on deception. You told investors I was your advisor. You put my name on documents without my consent. That is not ambition. That is fraud, wearing a family mask. Olivia's jaw tightened. Fraud? Really, Dad? We're just trying to make something of ourselves. You've had success your whole life because people trusted you. Why can't you extend that same trust to us? Because trust is earned, I said, my voice rising despite myself. And you haven't earned it. You came into my world, into a night dedicated to helping kids, and you treated it like your personal job fair. You've forgotten what this family stands for. I didn't build my life to be someone's shortcut, Olivia. I built it to give people chances not to be exploited. She slammed her hand on the table. We are your family. You're supposed to support us first. You spent years building wealth while we barely saw you. And now, when we need help, you want to lecture us about values? Where were those values when you missed my school plays, or when Mom cried because you were late again? The words hit like stones. For a moment, I couldn't speak, because she was right about some of it. I had missed things. I had sacrificed time I could never get back, telling myself it was for them. Olivia, I said softly, you're right. I wasn't there enough. I thought building something big for the future would make up for it. I thought you would understand when you were older. But using my absence as an excuse to justify dishonesty? That's not what your mother or I raised you to do. Adam tried to interrupt, but I held up a hand. Number, I've listened enough. Here's what's going to happen. You will remove my name from every deck, every email, every word you've ever used to make me sound like your advisor. You will call every person you pitched and tell them I'm not involved. And you will never use my charity or its donors as your personal fishing ground again. Olivia stared at me, eyes blazing. And if I don't, then we're done, I said simply. Financially, emotionally, professionally done. I love you, Olivia, but I will not allow you to drag everything I've built into something selfish and hollow. For a moment, I thought she might cry, or scream, or throw something. Instead, she laughed bitterly. Fine. Don't help us, don't be a father. Just be the man with the money and the rules. You're good at that. She turned away, grabbing her coat like she wanted me out of her apartment. I felt something break inside me, not anger, but grief. This wasn't the daughter who once stood on chairs to help me stir pancake batter. who once held my hand at the zoo and said, "When I grow up, I want to help people just like you, Dad." Somewhere along the way, that little girl had been replaced by someone who saw people as stepping stones. I walked to the door quietly. "I am your father," I said, my voice low but steady. "And because I am, I have to tell you the truth, even if you hate me for it. I would rather you hate me for being honest than love me for being weak." She didn't reply. Adam just stood there, arms crossed, his jaw set like stone. I left the apartment, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality I could feel in my bones. In the hallway, I paused, leaning against the wall, trying to breathe. This wasn't how I imagined my life. I thought success would make my family proud, that it would bind us together. Instead, it had become something they wanted to inherit, not something they wanted to live by. When I got home, I poured myself a drink and sat in the dark, Helen's photo on the shelf catching the dim light. "I don't know if I did the right thing," I whispered to her, "but I can't let this continue." In that silence, I made a decision. I was done handing out blank checks, financial or emotional. If Olivia wanted to build something, she would have to do it without turning me into a marketing bullet point. And maybe, just maybe, she would rediscover the values she'd lost along the way. The morning after the confrontation, I woke up with that hollow heaviness in my chest, the kind that doesn't go away after a good night's sleep. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, and for once, even the sunlight felt unwelcome. I sat at the edge of my bed, elbows on my knees, wondering how a single conversation with my daughter had left me feeling like I'd lost a part of myself. For years, I thought success would solve everything. I thought if I built a stable life, a respected name, and enough wealth to keep us secure for generations, my family would be proud, grateful even. Instead, I had somehow raised someone who believed using my reputation without permission was a form of ambition. Maybe this was my fault. Maybe I had been so focused on giving Olivia opportunities that I'd forgotten to teach her where opportunity ends and integrity begins. I made coffee and sat by the window overlooking the city. Cars rushed by, people hustled to work, chasing something: money, dreams, survival. I had been one of them once, grinding day and night to climb a ladder I thought would lead to peace. It hadn't. Peace isn't in the ladder. It's in the values you keep while climbing. Somewhere along the way, I'd let Olivia think the ladder was all there was. I pulled out a folder from the cabinet, my estate plan. Inside were documents I hadn't looked at in years: wills, trust funds, even a letter I'd once written as a legacy message to my family. Reading it now, I felt embarrassed. It talked about sacrifice, values, gratitude, yet my daughter had just accused me of being a father only in name, a man with money and rules. Maybe she was right to feel abandoned when she was younger. But she was wrong to use that pain as a license to abandon her own integrity. I called my lawyer. "We need to update my documents," I said. Today. 2 hours later, I was in his office, a pen in hand, rewriting my future. First, I adjusted my will. Olivia and Adam would still have a share, but it would no longer be a blank check. Their inheritance would now be conditional matched to their own earned income, tied to proof of work and contribution, no easy payouts, no living off the family name without effort. Second, I directed a substantial portion of my wealth into the foundation as an endowment, ensuring that even if no one gave another dime, those kids would still have programs, books, teachers, safe places to learn and grow. Third, I established a fund in Helen's name, dedicated to teaching financial literacy and ethics in schools, something I wished, desperately, I had embedded more deeply at home. When the documents were signed, I felt something I hadn't expected: relief. It wasn't about punishing Olivia or Adam. It was about reclaiming what I stood for. I couldn't control how they lived, but I could control what my life's work represented after I was gone. That evening, I sat alone at the kitchen table, a photo album open in front of me. There was a picture of Olivia at age 7, holding up a lemonade stand sign that said, "All money goes to the animal shelter." I remembered how proud she was to hand those crumpled bills to the shelter volunteer. I wondered where that little girl went, the one who gave without expecting anything back. Maybe she was still there, buried under ambition and frustration, waiting for something or someone to wake her up. I wrote a letter that night, one I didn't know if I would ever give her. "Olivia, I love you. That will never change. But love isn't the same as approval. I raised you to be strong, to think for yourself, but somewhere along the way, I failed to show you that strength without integrity is weakness in disguise. I will not let you use my name to build something hollow. If you want success, build it honestly. If you want my respect, earn it. And if one day you want to talk, really talk, I'll be here. But until then, I have to step back, because watching you abandon your values hurts more than losing anything material. Dad. I folded it, placed it in an envelope, and locked it in my desk. Maybe someday she'd be ready to read it. Maybe not. The next few days felt different. I wasn't waiting for phone calls from her. I wasn't checking my email expecting an apology that would never come quickly. Instead, I focused on things I had neglected. Lunch with an old friend, a quiet walk through the park Helen and I used to visit, and more time at the foundation itself, meeting the kids whose lives were actually changed by the work we were doing. Those kids didn't know or care about my net worth. They cared that someone showed up. Someone believed in them. One afternoon, I overheard two teenagers talking while unpacking supplies at one of the learning centers. One said, "I want to be like Mr. Hale. One day, he just helps people, no strings attached." That simple statement hit me harder than any corporate award ever had. Somewhere, at least outside of my family drama, I was living the values I had hoped to teach. By the end of the week, I felt lighter. Sad, yes, but clearer than I had been in years. I knew the next time Olivia called, if she ever did, the conversation would be different. I wouldn't be baited into guilt-driven support. I wouldn't trade my principles for temporary peace. I had drawn a line, not out of anger, but out of love for what I stood for, and maybe, deep down, love for her too, because enabling her would only keep her blind. As I went to bed that night, I looked at Helen's photo and whispered, "I think I finally did the right thing, honey. I just hope she sees it one day." A year passed faster than I expected. The foundation had grown stronger, more independent than ever. The changes I'd made, diverting more resources into an endowment, expanding educational programs, and focusing on sustainable support had taken root. For the first time, I felt like my work would outlive me in a way that wasn't dependent on anyone's mood or ambition. It would stand on its own, exactly as Helen and I once dreamed. When it came time to plan the next gala, I felt different. The stress that usually came with every detail, every guest list, every conversation about how much money we might raise, was gone. I still wanted it to be special, but I no longer needed it to prove anything about me or my family. It was simply a celebration of what we could accomplish together. The night of the gala arrived, crisp and clear. As I stood at the entrance to greet guests, I realized how calm I felt. No pit in my stomach, no nervous glances looking for Olivia and Adam. And yet, a part of me wondered if they would come. I hadn't heard much from Olivia since our confrontation. We exchanged a few polite texts on holidays and birthdays, nothing more. She had honored my demand to stop using my name, at least as far as I knew, but we hadn't talked about the deeper issues. Some wounds don't close overnight. As guests arrived, donors, community leaders, teachers, even some of the children who had benefited from our programs, I felt the energy in the room grow warm and vibrant. This time, I noticed every smile, every laugh, every little detail I used to overlook while chasing perfection. When I stepped on stage to give my speech, I felt no nerves, just gratitude. I talked about the past year, about the kids who were now reading at grade level thanks to our tutoring programs, about the scholarships we funded, about how generosity can shape futures. I didn't talk about family, about legacy, about names on plaques. I talked about impact. As I stepped down, I saw something I hadn't expected. Olivia, standing near the back of the room. She wasn't in a glamorous gown this time, just a simple dress, her hair tied back, holding a small clutch instead of a stack of business cards. Adam wasn't with her. She gave me a small nod, tentative, almost shy, and for a moment, I saw the little girl who used to tug at my sleeve during these events and say, "Can I help, Daddy?" After the formal program ended, I made my way toward her. For a second, I thought she might leave before I reached her, but she stayed. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly. "Hi, Olivia," I replied. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." She hesitated, looking around the room. "I almost didn't come, but I needed to." We stood in silence for a moment, the noise of the gala swirling around us but feeling far away. Finally, she said, "I wanted to tell you, I'm sorry. For last year, for how I acted, for how I treated you. I thought I was just being ambitious, but I was being selfish. And you were right." I studied her face, searching for signs of insincerity, but there were none. She looked tired, but also honest, maybe even humbled. "Olivia, I'm not interested in being right. I'm interested in us being honest with each other," I said gently. She nodded. "I've been working. On my own. No shortcuts, no name. dropping. It's harder, but it feels better. And I wanted you to know I'm not using your name anymore. Not because you told me not to, but because I don't want to. I need to do this myself. For a moment, I couldn't speak. All the hurt from a year ago seemed to loosen its grip just a little. That makes me proud, Olivia, I finally said. Not because you're doing it alone, but because you understand why it matters. Her eyes glistened, but she smiled. I'm not perfect, Dad. I'm still figuring it out, but I want us to be okay. We will be, I said softly, and I believed it. She stayed for the rest of the evening, not networking, not pitching, just listening, laughing quietly with a few guests, even helping one of the volunteers pack up silent auction items. Watching her, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Later, as the ballroom emptied and the last guest left, I stood alone for a moment, looking at the room we had filled with purpose and generosity. This was what it was meant to be, not a stepping stone for someone's ambition, but a place where people came together to build something bigger than themselves. When I left that night, Olivia walked out with me. We didn't say much, but when she hugged me goodbye, it was different, less obligatory, more real. It felt like the beginning of something new, something fragile but promising. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window, looking at the city lights. Helen's photo still sat on the shelf, her smile eternal and warm. We might be okay, honey, I whispered. She's finding her way. For the first time in years, I felt no need to control the future. My legacy wasn't about my name or my wealth. It was about what I chose to stand for, and the hope that, one day, my daughter would choose to stand for something too.